Okay. 3C2. Can you facilitate this for me? Yeah,
You could sit up front here. Oh, right there. No spaces.
Good evening. Tonight we have the opportunity to talk about the defining phenomenon of our modern society. The thing by which I think will be known for the future. Future generations will think of us in terms of this thing. And people around the world who don't share our culture already think of us in terms of this thing. And that is possession. Having things, owning material objects, acquisition of resources. We, in a way that I think we often forget, own a lot of stuff. In our culture, it's a lot easier to have stuff than to not have stuff. Most people I know actually have more stuff than they want. I'm seeing nodding right here. So it's an interesting fact that for us, getting things is easier than losing things. A long time ago, very long time ago, centuries ago, millennia ago, 2,500 years ago, someone was teaching in India who we now think of as the Buddha. And Gautama Buddha said that the highest happiness is the relinquishment of all acquisitions.
ပြောခဲ့တာရှိတယ်တဲ့လူတယောက်ရဲ့ဒီအောင်မြင်မှုဆုံးဆုံးအဲ့ဒါဖြစ်စေဥစ္စာမရှိတာချင်းပဲစိတ်မဲ့တဲ့ဟာမျိုးပဲစိတ်မဲ့တဲ့ဟာမျိုး
And I think that the past many centuries have shown us that nobody believed him. So of course it's not true that nobody believed him. Millions of people actually believed him and confirmed what he had to say about that. But the vast majority of us are going in a different direction. I bring this up because of a recent event in my life, a very nice week that I had recently, and some of you are aware of it. I did something a little bit, just a little bit, like what Pilgrim did. I was on a bicycle, and I just had a sleeping bag in a tent. As I say, it wasn't what she did. I'm not claiming that it was, but it was a little bit in the spirit of what she did. And I biked around Vermont without a plan, without a direction. And I had a lot less as I did that.
So the Vermont seven disease,
Of course, Pilgrim had much less. She only had a few possessions that she could carry in her pockets. And she didn't have money. I had money, and I bought food when I wanted to eat, but she didn't do any of that. She had very, very few acquisitions for the second half of her life. And I'd say that if you look at videos of her, if you watch her speaking, and also if you just read her book, it's clear that the prominent theme of her experience was happiness. And if you look at the Buddha, there's no question that he consistently was, well, you'd have to say happier than most of us, but it's strange even to use a word like happy in the case of the Buddha. It was as he described it, was a happiness that isn't happiness. It's beyond happiness. Happiness takes you so far, and then his experience that he could enter into at any time was far happier than what we call happiness. Both of them had given up everything, and both of them manifest a deep happiness that continues to inspire us even after both of them have passed away. The Buddha and Pilgrim. And for me, as I went on my little trip, I noticed that it wasn't just that I had fewer material possessions, but which is to say, I didn't just have less to have. I didn't just have less, I also had less to do. I didn't carry around in my mind the various things that I needed to do in order to get things done.
So, do I need to keep the dog and a chain of putting self on it? But just see that you don't need it from you. Lamb or not, losing this is the machine. I don't lose the machine or losing the machine. Land don't let us do Pamados losing the machine.
And so there's a dropping of physical, material possessions. There's also a dropping of mental possessions. And that mental form of possession even goes on to the thing which most of us hold as our most deeply cherished possessions. And that is what we believe to be true, what we think is right. That also is a kind of possession that we carry around and that burdens us.
So, losing the machine, you're going to say, you're second saying, because you are not losing the machine. The bay how the basic is to go the two woman young with Yaji hard to losing them Nena education.
And as I was biking around, it was very nice because I didn't have control over who I was with. I didn't have control over what was happening. In general, without even noticing it, we maintain a great deal of control over our lives. And I needed to go for a week, relatively short period of time, but pretty long period of time, without that control over who I was with and what was happening around me.
So, two keys and low keys in this one, low account of the keys in Japan. Harinama, to look at the machine, to look at the piece in the machine. Hello, to control the machine, and look at the keys.
And because I couldn't spend time in the situations that I wanted, with the people I wanted, I didn't have the thing that most of us stop noticing, that I often stop noticing that I have, which is a constant confirmation of my perspective.
So, Lord, losing the physical machine, to want in as an elderly machine, to bow the dear is to determine to kitchen losing the holiday. Kitchen losing the Lusana return, Nelani.
Though we don't often even notice it. We think, well, everyone sees things this way. But it's not true. It's only the people who we choose to spend time with. And I think that the internet actually has made this problem even worse. Because on the internet, you can really choose a very select group of people who see things exactly the way we do. And it looks like this is it. This is the truth. This is how it really is. And we don't have the privilege, the honor of being challenged, deeply challenged, regarding the way we see things and the way we want things.
Jimmy solution, area teaching a bit to show nearly to the minute only the kitchen honey. Was in the domain, sounds in the honey, anyhow, the near the penny. Internet, my internet solution, clear to Minaco, Lugio clear one, and let you solution to losing the house to take the house to do teaching the honey to do. You get a little to teaching. A
So I want some food. You want food? Okay. Oh, there's food in this, general store or gas station or something. You can go in here and get some food, and you go in there. This is all of my company for the week, more or less. And who's in there? No one who I was looking for. That's who. Not a single person who I wanted to see is in there. And that's magnificent. Because if I'm feeling like talking to someone, I have to talk to someone who I can't select. That's an enormous gift.
So key to kana and set the resolution. The key to in it was the dinner to the machine. So to choose I with the manuals of this and the size and the manuals of machine, the same in the to do an addition could not design in the chicken. Very pretty what around the bushy.
Because that situation asks me to be willing to see things from a new perspective. Just in order to have a basic human relationship, just to make a friend, I need to be willing to set aside certain views that I may be carrying. Which means that I've set aside a lot of the stuff that I possess physically, and I've set aside a lot of the things that I possess in terms of my responsibilities, and I've set aside a lot of things that I possess in terms of my views.
So all of it is in the Diana, who are Lungasana. I mean, I never came on the couldn't anything. It is in the coordination. The top is a new and lady, Zayn and the Sassan, you love the house to Yana. All of it in 20 minutes of Lucy. The near and native Jim the hard national resolution, Eddie the Yana.
And this setting aside, this loss, this relinquishment is enormously fulfilling. And when I came back and spoke with the residents about my trip, I didn't go into any of the details. One of the newer people who didn't know exactly what I was doing at the end of my talk still didn't know what I had been doing. They only knew what I said because I said only what was most important to me, which was that as I rode along, as I sailed along mostly the dirt roads of Vermont, just sailing along, even uphill it feels like sailing, really, after a certain point. It's just fantastic. You're just sailing along, watching the trees go by, and the rivers go by, and the boulders go by, and the mountains go by. Watching all of that becomes one flow, one current of joy.
So, Kutire Hari target video, Kutire Hari low and day, you change Shina, Payana to think. All of your low in the method to KU, what to choke down with the thing, the map, the Kiki have not a deep machine, and it's dumping to do it. Nama tapping she the Jahari she made up to teach the China to a Yoshimuri to Kazara, Tamata, the Bawa, Yene Chila, the Bawa Yoshimuri.
There's a great joy in not having and in receiving what comes rather than what we seek.
Mashibu isimevo, Mashibene yare Yoshimuba, the Hamu Motive she here, Yolimene yare Yoshimuba, the Hamu do she here. They take a beauty could develop.
So there I was. This is, I don't know, about a week ago? Did I come back about a week ago? Something like that. So roughly a week ago to 2 weeks ago, I was on my bike. I don't know if any of you remember the weather that we had at that time. Maybe some of you remember. It was really difficult weather to be outside in. 33-degree rain. 32-degree precipitation would have been a lot easier to deal with, actually, because it wouldn't have been wet. It was a tough time, and it was so interesting to deeply experience the fact that nature, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, so try not to take this the wrong way. But it was wonderful to experience the fact that nature doesn't care about me. If I keep going. Nature, if we're going to call it that, nature cares about something much bigger than me. And when I'm in nature, I'm invited to become that. And so somehow having less, holding less, possessing less, provides us with a happiness that fulfills us more.
So,
and so you'd think that Peace Pilgrim and the Buddha, if they were so wise as everybody says they are, why didn't they encourage everyone to be in poverty? Why didn't they say, well, poverty is holy? Poverty is good. Poverty is inherently beneficial. Why didn't they say that? I, as many of you know, trained for a time in India in a form of Buddhism that was structured by Bhimrao Ambedkar, one of the most important figures in recent Indian history. Do you know who? Ambedkar grew up in poverty, in extreme poverty, and was a member of the lowest stratum of Indian society. Experiencing a kind of poverty, a kind of lack of acquisition, of a lack of possessions, and a lack of power that most of us haven't experienced, and actually most of us can't imagine.
What's the name?
Ambedkar. Ambedkar. Now, he was very influential in politics, and there was another person at the same time who was also very influential in politics. And while most of you probably haven't heard of Babasaheb Ambedkar, how many of you have heard of Ambedkar? Yes, that's what I thought. Probably most of you have heard of this other figure in Indian history in recent times. His name was Mohandas Gandhi. Probably most of you have heard of him, right? Gandhi was a staunch, so I should, maybe I'll give you an on-ramp. Gandhi, of course, is very well respected, and many people love him very much, and he was very impressive in many ways. But not everyone admires Gandhi. We're all a mix of things, aren't we? And he also was.
Gandhi was India Gandhi. Gandhi Gandhi India must be today at the room too. Gandhi had a down. So look on
Gandhi was a staunch supporter of the caste system, of class inequality based on race. This was something that he deeply believed in, and he fought for his entire political career.
India was not the other than a sin. Singing the Amuna, singing the Ganzam. Candia, other people, and our big feeling a human that I don't do the and I can't get out. It is near getting gone.
And one of the justifications that he used for this was that he had found in his life that poverty worked quite well. He had chosen to live in poverty for the latter portion of his life. You could, if you're going to call it poverty. It was a kind of poverty. He made his own clothes and he ate simple food and lived in simple housing and such. And because of that, he said that poverty is inherently beneficial. Poverty is sacred. And so we should help a lot of people to stay in poverty, to stay powerless.
So Gandhiya, to go to have to get up looking at damage and then we have to go and see me. Who are the Posari Luted, who are the Luni children? See ya on the wrong, what you get up, see ya come here, see ya is virgin Chana, and a Jamudo, see ya Jiha, Chana Jim to what you read.
And for that reason, he called the people who we now refer to as the Dalits, meaning the lowest class of traditional Indian society, he called them the Harijan. Any of you heard of that term? Maybe some of you have. No. Hari is God and Jan is people. So they're the people of God. And they're the people of God because they're powerless and poor.
So every time I cannot do a Harijan, so they have. Harijan, so that I
and Ambedkar disagreed with Gandhi on this point with a fervor that I deeply admire. He said it's very good. Poverty works in some ways for some people. There's nothing inherently wrong with poverty, and there's nothing inherently right about it either. For a person to choose to be in poverty, as monks have done for a long time, this is beautiful. But for people to be forced to have no power, to not have the fundamental necessities to not be able to trust their society, the police, the government, the healthcare system, on and on. To not be able to leave poverty. There is absolutely nothing sacred or holy about that.
So Gandhi Mohoda and Hatia should be the thousand year. How did you learn it? Cannot be in America. What's his name then? The other leader?
Ambedkar?
Ambedkar cannot be in the one Gandhi, yeah. Took the sea and comments with how don't come. Palo is come on, the Lucian resolution, the very possible. Again, if you get out, do ya? Hello, you people see a young you. So, I recognize the conquer Pulaga. The Minigal regulars. Pull you, Titia young Minigal, see and put down, comes. I cannot constantly.
The reason I bring this up is that it's very important to see that the question isn't if you're poor. The question is why you're poor. The question isn't if you have possessions. The question is why you have possessions. That's the point that we have to examine very closely. Why do I have so much stuff? Or why do I have less stuff? What's the underlying motivation? What's the cause of that? What are the conditions that are resulting in that circumstance? That's something that we have to examine very, very closely. When we carefully examine this, then we become people who are not possessed by possessions. We become people who can use possessions as tools. And it's very important for us who live in this society. It's very important for us to use the power that we have, and a lot of that power comes in the form of possessions. We should use our possessions, yes. We should not be used by our possessions. We should make use of the opportunity to demonstrate the power that we have with the things we have. But we should not be imprisoned by those things. We shouldn't be oppressed by the very things that are supposed to be used to overcome oppression.
So, Dima, Tabajina, Dina, Handle to the people. Genoria, Einstein, who didn't remember many new men. Eddie, Goya Paisan Hulu, a Joshi of Mutum Channel. Eddie Paisan Hulu, go, Millennium Zia, go, Toma Channel, go up to do when you go to Channel. To the house, if they just have to do things.
If we do this, then we simultaneously become happier, more fulfilled, more joyful as we move through our lives, and at the same time, we become more powerful. We become more capable of serving the world.
Hello, you are doing resolution, to look on the social channel. The bio generation the generals in the sheet and the bio general
So let's take some time to explore our possessions. Take a moment to straighten your back. Lifting yourself into a magnificent posture that makes you feel magnificent. Two common emotions that are associated with possessions are craving, desire, on the one hand, and guilt and shame on the other. Find a position that relieves you, that releases you from both of those emotional reactions. Sit in a way that's confident, serene, peaceful. Setting aside craving and shame. Use your physical position, your posture, to begin that process. And as you find that posture, relax into it. Settle into it. And having settled into your posture, begin breathing in a way that also allows you to feel magnificent, confident, serene, transcending covetousness and shame. Use your body to do this. And be creative about it. Try different postures. And lean forward, lean back. Change the tilt of your head. Change how far forward or backward your chest is. Same thing with your belly. How much weight is on your feet versus the chair. You can even go vertebra by vertebra, shifting each vertebra to see if I change this one a little bit, does that change covetousness and shame? How about this one? How about this one? How about this one? Or this one? And go up your whole spine. Those are the kinds of adjustments that we're working with in order to relieve the two unwholesome relationships with possessions that are common in our culture. As you settle into this, as your posture adjusts, let that feed into your breathing. Adjust your breathing in order to feel the same way. And then let those breathing adjustments feed back into your posture. How can we feel confident and serene? We can make adjustments in our posture and in our breathing and see how that impacts the way we feel. For example, if you are breathing from your throat, does that allow you to experience confidence and serenity? If you're breathing from your chest, does that allow you to experience confidence and serenity? If you're breathing from your belly, does that allow you to experience confidence and serenity? And as you breathe in each of those ways, how does that change your posture? How does that affect how far forward or backward your hips are rolled? How far forward or backward your shoulders are rolled? How far forward or backward your head is rolled? Pay attention to all of this. So that rather than feeling needy and ashamed, we feel confident and serene. And from this confidence and serenity, cultivate equanimity. And in order to cultivate equanimity, open up to all experience. Open up to all experience. Allow whatever experience is coming right now to come. Whatever experience, allow it to arise. And whatever experience is passing away right now, allow it to pass away. Whatever is going, let it go. Or simply with this present experience, whatever it is. Just like wandering, powerless and lost on the dirt roads of Vermont. You don't know what's coming next, just have to receive it. Enjoy it while it's there and then keep on going. Each next tree, each next stream, whatever it is, let it come and go. Bring equanimity to each experience. If that means that you're thinking, then let those thoughts arise and pass away freely. If you're feeling something, perhaps you're feeling confident and serene. Very good, allow that. But if it passes away, allow it to pass away. Perhaps you have itches or aches, pressures or pains in your body. Just allow that. Allow those itches and aches to arise freely. And if they pass away, let them go. Perhaps you hear things happening around you. That's fine. Allow those sounds to arise freely. And when they pass away, let them go. Whether you're thinking or feeling or aware of your environment, in any case, wander through all of that without grabbing on to any of it. Every experience, bring equanimity to that. And if at this time you don't have any equanimity, there's something happening and you're holding on to it very tight. This is what I really believe and I know it's true and all those other people are wrong. This is a problem. I have to deal with it. Can't let it go. There's a feeling that I don't want. Go away, please go away. If you don't have equanimity, you're having an experience at all similar to any of the examples I just gave. Very good. Bring equanimity to the experience of not having equanimity. Let that experience happen. And if we can't, very good. Bring equanimity to that. If you ever want to revisit your posture or your breathing, please feel free. And then continue with this exercise again. Letting go of preferences. Allowing this experience to happen fully. This experience to cease fully. Letting each experience come and go without resistance. At any time, feel free to return to your posture. You can use your posture and your breathing as an anchor. If you'd like, it would be helpful to you, feel free to continue the practice in any posture. That might be standing up or lying down or walking slowly. Anything is fine. Continue to receive each next experience fully and to let it go completely, bringing equanimity to each experience. Each experience. And give the emphasis as you do this to letting each next experience purify your awareness of the previous experience. Note how it is that by not holding on to this experience, we don't push away the next experience. By not pushing away this next experience, we don't hold on to this one. Let each next experience purify your mind of whatever you're experiencing right now. And in this way, moment-to-moment experience naturally takes away our possessions. Allow yourself to lose everything by receiving this. Completely allow this moment's experience, whatever it is, to arise. And in that moment, allow everything that we're carrying into this moment to fall away. By experiencing this totally, we lose everything that we've carried into this. By losing everything that we've carried into this, we experience this completely. Set aside assumptions, preferences, opinions, views, impressions, standpoints. Set everything aside to experience this. Unknown, unexpected, unpossessed. And now, from this open and clear state of mind, intentionally bring your attention to your possessions, the things, the objects that you own. And consider which of those things would you like to lose, to give away, to offer for the benefit of the world. Choose one. Just take a guess. Choose something, anything. And then play out in your mind what it would be like. What would happen if you skillfully gave that away? What would happen if you skillfully gave that away? play it out in your mind, and in particular, attend to whatever happiness arises as you imagine losing that forever. If you haven't chosen something yet, just take a guess. Anything's okay. Something small, something big, anything's okay. We're just imagining. We're just envisioning this. But try to play it out in your mind. See yourself giving it away. See the consequences in the world. And see the happiness, whatever happiness arises, as you imagine letting go of that possession. Very good. And imagine now getting a new possession. You can imagine anything, big or small. Just choose anything. And play out in your mind what it's like to get that, to have that, to own that, to use that. And in particular, pay attention to whatever happiness arises as you consider acquiring something. Very good. And once again, imagine losing something. Not having something that you have, giving something away. And imagine the happiness that comes with that. And in particular, note if the happiness that comes from giving something away is the result of imagining that the world will become the way you want it to be. If we're giving something away in order to make things be the way we want them to be, then that isn't really giving something away. That's just trading one thing for another. But what would happen if we just gave it away and didn't receive anything in return? The world didn't become the way we want it to be. Then what happiness is there? So this is a time for discussion, questions, comments, reports, anything at all. The time is yours. Mm-hmm. You might want to speak a little bit loud because of the fans.
When you said, imagine giving something away,
Uh-huh.
it was difficult to pick one thing to give away.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I had one idea, it felt nice at first, but then I felt the grasping was it.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't like that feeling.
Mm-hmm. You didn't like the feeling of grasping?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I also didn't like the feeling of it's okay to give it away, because it felt like I wasn't grateful for the possession. And so it left a confusing kind of feeling in my body. Or what should I do with this item now? So left feeling a little bit confused on that.
Mm-hmm. So you, let me just turn that one down a little bit. So you had an experience of imagining giving something away. At first, that was a pleasant experience. There was a pleasant aspect of the experience. Then, as you examined it, two other sorts of experiences came as well. One was you found yourself grasping after that thing. And the other was you felt like giving it away wasn't an expression of gratitude for it. Yes? And therefore you were confused about what to do with this possession.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, that's great. To know that we're being motivated by those various emotions is in itself powerful. So just to know that is already valuable. So the exercise was effective for you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then also maybe now isn't the time to give that thing away. So that's okay. You don't have to. You can do this exercise dozens of times until you find something that you feel certain you want to give away, and then you give that away, and then you'll find out if your certainty was well-founded by watching what actually happens. And then you gain that information, that feedback from the world, and then you keep going. You can do it again. An exercise like this, where you're intentionally examining your reactions to giving things away, has value as long as it's just one half of a larger feedback loop. And that larger feedback loop is imagine doing it and then do it. So you want to imagine, you want to find something through imagination that you feel comfortable losing, so that you'll actually give it away, you'll actually lose it. And then you get feedback from what happens, which is rarely what you thought would happen. And so then that corrects your ideas of how things are. And then you can try again. So that's the point of it. We don't want to put too much pressure on doing exercise one time. Do it many times, find something you're interested in giving away, and then give that away. Did you have the same kind of complexity when you were imagining acquiring something?
No.
So, and did you feel happiness about acquiring?
Yeah, I do.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So then maybe now's the time in your life to acquire things.
All right.
There's nothing wrong with that. You can't give stuff away unless you acquire things. Right? So, nothing wrong with acquiring things. If there's something wrong with acquiring things, then there's something wrong with giving things away. But the question again is just, are you acquiring things? The question is, why are you acquiring things? And this exercise allows you to examine that. Examine your motivations, and you found some motivation, so the exercise was effective. But someone over there had their hand up. Yes? Is it you, Anne?
Well, I did just put up my hand, but that maybe was not the person you were thinking of.
Did anyone else in this part of the room raise their hand?
I don't think that person sitting there. No, that's it.
Oh, okay, good. Yes.
All right, I'll just say really quickly. This seemed like a really interesting topic, especially since yesterday I went to Goodwill with some things, and there was a line of cars. Everyone trying to give things away.
Yeah, right.
And I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
A line of cars. I kind of parked my car and carried my thing.
That's great.
But
Goodwill is very kind to the people giving. Give them a place.
Right.
Give them a place to give their stuff and
Absolutely.
Not just throw it away.
The other thing I was thinking about this week was
You're kind to actually many different people. Also kind to me. That's usually where I shop. And kind to the employees and everyone. So it's a nice organization.
The other thing I was thinking about this week was that sometimes I sort of impose on myself this sort of big should, that I should live simply and totally in a certain way and dress a certain way and do things a certain way. And it gets to be a sort of a,
Yeah, everyone look.
doesn't
Can you keep on doing what you're doing? Show us again what it's like? Yeah.
Versus sometimes I find that if I'm generous with myself, like, oh, I really would love to do that. And then I'm more generous with other people.
Yeah. Right, so the reason I ask people to look at you as you enacted with your body the feeling is that we may not notice it, but if you're a professional, such as me, you notice it, that if you feel that way emotionally, just now in demonstrating it, you did it quite obviously. But actually, most of us, most of the time, hold a posture, not this extreme, but something like this. It's not like this, where you make it so obvious that people can see it who aren't familiar with this. But even this posture I have right now is impacted by that emotion. I'm still holding the posture affected by that shame and neediness. That neediness and shame. Contrast makes us like this. There's a tightness that I can feel here that goes into my shoulders. There's a collapsedness in my chest that crushes my breathing. And in a strange way, even my face changes. I feel kind of like a cornered rodent. My eyes get a little wider, and I don't know if you can see any of this, but I'm familiar with it, and I see it a lot in our society. And it's quite subtle, but it's almost constant, which means it has a real impact on our lives. So we want to be able to come back into a posture that's a little bit more natural, confident, and serene. And I don't know if any of you, it wasn't a big shift, but maybe even the way you were feeling changed when I did that. Yes? So we're even impacting other people as we do this. So So it's very important for us to have some way to move through that, and that's why I gave you that exercise of, can you work with your posture and move your way out of that emotional trap so that we can approach the issue of possessions in a more rational way and in a more effective way. It sounds like that's what you know how to do. It's simply a matter of practicing it and doing it consistently. Is that right?
Yes and no.
You know how to be generous with yourself, as you said. You've done it.
Sometimes.
Yeah. It's just a matter of practicing it so that it becomes a consistent pattern. Right?
Yeah, as long as it leads to generosity toward others.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. The thing is, I know you. I don't know that your bottleneck is generosity towards others. Right? It's of course it should lead to generosity towards others, but I think that you want to be generous towards others. That isn't something that you really need to, that isn't the weakness. There are other things that are preventing you from being generous towards others that are not that your degree of motivation for helping others. I think you're highly motivated to helping others. But there are things that are preventing that. It's just not that you're not motivated to help others. Right? Does that make sense? There are things that are preventing it. Yes. And one of them is this trapped stance that we sometimes take because we put ourselves in that kind of corner. And then we have a much harder time being effective, doing something even if we want to, because we're somewhat frozen. And sadly, we can maintain that for years without even noticing it. But it does have an effect on how we live. So to break out of that and then to be able to clearly decide from that place, would I like to give this away? Would I like to be of service? Yep. Great. Much simpler.
When you were talking about Gandhi, I was thinking, or else you going on walkabout, or the Buddha walking away from it. This one, giving up things is one thing, that all those people still had a level of internal confidence of power that was from their whole personal histories.
Yep.
And that isn't easy to get rid of. Whereas you contrast Gandhi saying about the nobility of poverty,
Right.
deep poverty, is
Right.
It's that level of confidence isn't ever going to be there
Right.
in any possible way. The only way I feel like people like ourselves could ever do it is that we think about the people that had the good life and were suddenly street people, because things, the variables change and they just can't get out of it. And that's a different kind of, that's not giving up, that's having everything taken out from under you and losing your confidence. So it's about possessions, but it seems like it's also about where's your threshold of threat, maybe, or where, I don't know how to, but something about the balance, the internal balance, where your presence can't escape give and take impermanence.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely true, and I think that you're pointing at a great deal of what Ambedkar was pointing at in his battles with Gandhiji. I think that that you're describing a great deal of what he was attempting to describe. But there are a few things I'd want to add to that. One is that the thing that actually motivated Stephanie, who suggested this topic for this Sunday, was a story in the book about someone who had a lot of stuff and they felt burdened by it. And Peace Pilgrim describes a time when, I think it was a woman who went to Peace Pilgrim and said, my house burned down. I lost everything. And it's great. It's so great to have all that gone. And she never thought she would have that reaction. And we also, fortunately in our community, someone wrote a very similar message on Meetup. There's a web service that we use. They wrote a similar message about their house burning down. And how relieving it was. So there are times, I just want to say there are times when losing everything can actually increase our confidence. Such a thing can happen. That depends primarily on our own maturity of mind versus the external circumstance. Yes? So for me, something that happens to me suspiciously often, strangely often, too often, is that I'll write something and then it'll just be lost. The computer will crash, literally crash, meaning die, so it's gone, I can never use it again. Not just crash and then you can turn it back on, but it's lost. But the computer actually is gone. It can never be restarted. That kind of thing happens to me too often. Too much, you know? It shouldn't happen that much. But something that's come with that happening so strangely much. There are weird stories about this. It's weird stuff, you know? I wrote something in pencil, thinking, okay, it's even pen, it could rain, but pencil. And I had the notebook in my car, and somehow something fell on the notebook, and I drove, and as I drove, for some reason, as I say, it's weird, this thing rubbed, so it was in the notebook, and it was on top of the notebook, and it was just going back and forth, and it erased the whole page. I mean, I could kind of read it. It was, portions of it were legible, most of it was gone. That's weird. That doesn't happen. So something that's come with that is that I have to rewrite it, and it's every time better. I'm every time. I sometimes I wish I could have just sent that off. It was good enough. But often I feel like it sure is good that happened, because I never would have just hit delete. I couldn't have. I feel so proud of what I wrote. I'm not going to hit delete. But good news, somebody did. And so, because it's gone, I have to start over, and because I start over, it's better. So a kind of confidence comes from that. So that's one side. The other side is that it is absolutely true in the case of, say, Gandhi, that he wasn't in real poverty. I mean, not even close. He was one of the most powerful. He had 500 groupies. I mean, he wasn't going to starve. He wasn't in real danger. But I would say that in the case of Peace Pilgrim, she was in real danger sometimes. Real danger. And she went through that without the slightest fear. Without the slightest loss of confidence. And so while it is true that Peace Pilgrim was still not in the position that many people are in, and I don't think she tried to be. I don't think she had the goal. I will put myself in dangerous situations on a daily basis. That wasn't her goal. Her goal was to wander. knowing that occasionally there would be dangerous situations, and she was ready for that. But when she came into those situations, she handled them with enormous confidence. Not even confidence. Confidence still somehow implies a little bit of insecurity. But no insecurity. So I just want to add those 2 points. That on the one hand, we can lose things and gain confidence. On the other hand, there's a spiritual shift that can happen. Not just a shift in perspective. Not just a shift in our sense of how things should be, who we are, but a fundamental shift. A spiritual shift that can happen that is more fundamental than any phenomenon can touch. Than any situation can affect. Because all of those situations are conditional, but we've found something that's unconditional. I just want to add that. But I absolutely agree with what you're saying, of course, and I feel very strongly about it. I feel very strongly that it's very dangerous for us to think that wealth in and of itself is good. And it's dangerous for us to think that poverty in and of itself is good. Neither of them are inherently good or bad.
Just one little addition.
Yeah, please.
You're saying about confidence. I was thinking as you're talking how having things is kind of a surrogate confidence. It's like, hey,
Right.
I got this, I must be confident.
Right,
And
exactly.
not really, because we know most of us aren't.
Right, and that again, this is in the same section that Stephanie pointed out. She said that many people, that the reason that so many of us try to get material things is that we're deeply insecure. But that deep insecurity can't be resolved through the acquisition of material things. It can only be resolved through the acquisition of spiritual things. And that's what she therefore instructed people to do for her whole life. So it's as if you read the section. Did you read the section? Oh, well done. Did you know what section it was in reference to?
I remember the
Oh, okay.
section, so I finished it.
Okay. Okay, great.